Let's do a pivot table and see what we get. I've got, in week 14, we have a pivot table that I uploaded. This is not the pivot table. This is just what you're going to use for the pivot table. So I pick on it, click on it, open it in Excel, and it will automatically open up in Excel on my computer. So we'll wait for it to do that. And waiting. Oh, I have a pivot table completed. So I'm going to get rid of that. Delete. Let's just delete this whole sheet. Because what you're going to see is this. And this is, when you see something like this is good material for a pivot table. What you have is repeating entities down a column. North, you keep seeing north, 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 north. South repeats, east eats repeats all over the place, west repeats. So when you have something like that, you can put that data together and go, for the entire north region, how much were my sales in 2015? What were my sales in 2016? And you can do that for each region. So a pivot table has things like regions or a name or something like that. And for each of those names, you have numbers associated with them. What the pivot table does is combine them and add them up for you. So now let's look at this data. You're given something like this. To start a pivot table, the first thing I do is click anywhere in the pivot table. So you know I'm clicked into cell B8. Now all I do have to do is click in any cell within that pivot table, or not the pivot table, but actually my data field, any place. And then from there, and on YouTube, unfortunately, you won't be able to see my mouse move, so I'll try to do this slowly. So here, you go up to your tabs and you click on Insert tab. So if I click on Insert, you notice right now Home is underlined. When I click on Insert, Insert will be underlined. Then this brings up a new menu. Down here I have Pivot Table, and you notice how that's highlighted? So I'll move off of it, but if I pivot table on the left is highlighted. I click on that pivot table icon and it brings up this. And I never touch this for the most part, especially when you're beginning. Don't touch it. Just go, okay. Here's what it did. It knew from, you clicked on this cell C8, it knew that that was part of your pivot table. It looks for every single cell that's attached to that. And as soon as it finds blank cells where everything ends, it stops. So when I do that, this is what it picked out. It picked out that whole table, and that's fine. Now I click OK and move on to the next one. Now it gives me a screen that, this is what I call the screen of what the heck is this? Because people look at this, and I first looked at it and I thought, my goodness, there's nothing I can do with that. I don't even understand it. But first of all, here's a rule for you. Ignore what's on this left side. So this pivot table 2 thing and all of that in here, ignore that. Work on the right side, your pivot table fields. And notice we have a field called region. And as I scroll down, sales 2015 is now highlighted. As I scroll down, sales 2016 is highlighted. Remember that this region is your text fields, characters, north, south, east, and west, whereas sales are dollar signs, numbers. So, and pivot tables do things with region. With region, which is text, it wants to put a region in a row. Text fields generally will go in rows. Your numbers go in some of values down here. So I might try this. I'll click on regions, left, just click on that box. Notice it's checked. And as soon as I do that, down here in my 4 quadrant, regions appears in the rows quadrant, if you can see that. And then if I click on sales and the other sales, I click on both sales, sales appear down in the sum of values quadrant. But when I look at my pivot table, what I have over here, notice this. It created that pivot table for me already. It put north, south, east, and west in the rows. And then for east, it gave me the sum of all the sales for 2015 and then the sum of all the sales for 2016. And it also totaled up all the sales for all of 2016 for all the regions. So this is the grand total of north, south, east, and west for 2015. Grand total north, south, east, and west for 2016. And if I want to make these pretty, I can highlight them. And I can sneak up to, I have to first of all go back to my home tab up at the top. And then if you can see it highlighting this dollar sign, under general, dollar sign, click on that dollar sign and it shows them as dollars, which is fine. It's just formatting. So I've got something, don't forget to save this. So save your file so you don't lose it, then you've got something to upload. That is generally my pivot table, and I could say I'm finished, but people like charts also. So what I might do is click on my pivot table and then go to the insert. Notice home is underlined. I'm going again to my insert up here. Now that's underlined. I can click out here. I can recommended pivot tables. Let's go over here to the right, farther to the right. And I'm going to click in my pivot table, but I want to look for something that's going to give me a, chart. Look at this, recommended chart. Let's click on that. And it pops up a chart. It looks at your data, pops up a chart and says, I think you want one of these, a columns chart. And I go, you know, you're right, I do, I like that. So now I've got a nice chart. I can make it bigger. I can grab it at the lower right-hand corner and drag it and make it bigger. That looks nice. And then save this. You've got your chart. So what does this chart show us? Well, visually, the blue is 2015. So there's blue. I highlighted all the blue. Notice blue sales in 2015 were much higher than our sales in 2016. So our sales really declined between 15 and 16 in all of our regions, and it shows that. Then you might start asking questions. Why did they decline? Why are some reasons? Why did South? They didn't decline as much as East or West. What did South do? Did they do anything special? East and West really declined. What did they do? What happened there? So you've got some information. You can also put this on a new chart, but we'll just leave this like it is, save it, and then upload this. This is a good pivot table. And what we did, sheet 1 down at the lower bottom, I clicked on sheet 1. This is just data. Data doesn't tell me anything. I have to turn data into information. And sheet 3 is my information. Here it is in number format, and here it is visually. So that's where we're going to conclude this today.